Hello everyone, my name is Taylor, you're watching Pets in a Pod, and today I have answers to 5 commonly asked questions about reptiles on the internet. So I went to the Google and I tried to find common questions that people just were Googling a lot, and so I want to answer them together in one video. And so I picked 5 really common questions and I'm going to go one by one and answer that. Our first question is, can reptile mites live on humans? And I could see the concern with this one, especially once you realize your reptile has mites. First, you're worried about your reptile, and then secondly, you're worried about yourself. The good news is that there's nothing you really need to worry about in regards to mites jumping onto humans or infecting people. Reptile mites, or otherwise known as snake mites, are species specific, meaning that they are only going to infect the species that the mite is targeting. So if they are snake mites, they are only going to target snakes, which means you don't have to worry about the mites infesting you. Now, the bad news is you're still a surface, and just because the mites are not going to be feeding on you does not mean that the mites can't still get onto you or onto your clothes. So when you are handling a reptile with mites, you still need to be very careful afterward with washing your hands or changing out of your clothes, because the mites can transfer from the snake to you. And although they're not going to hurt you in any way, if they're on your clothes and then you go to handle another reptile somewhere else, you can pass the mites onto that other reptile. So that's why quarantining an animal with mites is extremely important, and you have to have very strict rules around it, because mites can spread easily and quickly. So the good news is they will not infect you, but they could still get on you. And so I guess the answer is yes, mites can live on humans, but they're not gonna hurt you or anything. Our next question is, which reptile is easiest to take care of? Oh my gosh, this is such a common question. I even get asked this in the comments a lot. What reptile is easy to take care of? So I'm gonna try and answer this question one time as best I can. And so that is going to be me saying all reptiles, all of them, require skill and knowledge to take care of them. Whether or not that skill is going to be easy depends on the individual person. There are people out there who take care of what's considered very advanced species, but to them, it's easy. There are people out there who will get beginner species and have such a tough time caring for them. So I really don't like to pinpoint certain species as easy. Although I try to give general recommendations of where to start, because even leopard geckos, you still have to know about the care, the substrate, the lighting, the food. Even though they're deemed beginner, you still have to learn about that reptile. What makes a reptile easier versus advanced? So an easy category reptile does tend to be cheaper to feed, tends to not need a gigantic enclosure. It tends to be tolerable to a variety of conditions generally, and they have stronger immune systems in where they're unlikely to get sick, or it's pretty hard to get them sick. And so this includes things like corn snakes, leopard geckos, bearded dragons, and none of these are just instantly easy. You still have to research them all, and that's the thing I'm trying to say is just because everybody gets a leopard gecko and suggests a leopard gecko, it does not mean you can just go get one and it'll take care of itself. It still takes research and care. But the good news is, generally it's easier to pick up on that research, and they are cheaper to feed, and they require relatively small enclosures. And so that's a good starting point, I think is a better way to put this. What reptiles are good starting points? Not that they're easy, it's just that they're a good place to start. Our third question is, it said, why is reptile carpet bad? There was also a second question, why is reptile carpet good? I recently put out a video on reptile substrates where I go into more depth on this. Highly recommend you guys watch. Just a quick answer here on repticarpet or reptile carpet. So the good thing about reptile carpet is that it is a solid floor. For some people, especially if you have a special needs animal, solid floor is preferred. Or if you're a new keeper or it's a baby and you need to be monitoring it more closely, solid floor is generally easier to find the animal and find animal poops and stuff like that, which means it's also easier to spot clean because you can clearly see the feces there and you just pick them up. It can also be washed, although people say, you know, as you wash these, because it is fabric basically, as you wash it, the fabric can become fuzzy, and this is where we get into the cons. And so Repticarpet, the cons are, no matter how much you do try to wash it, it can get bacterial buildup because it's a cloth, it's a fiber, and so there's going to be really no way for you to sterilize that unless you, I guess, you have special equipment. But at that point, it's just better off, once your carpet gets kind of dirty, to throw it away and get a new piece. But then that can be costly, constantly buying Repticarpet. Another downside is, whether it's brand new or not, it's very common for toes to get snagged on the fibers of the carpet, and teeth. I haven't heard of any like extreme cases where like something terrible happened. Usually it'll unsnag itself, but it really freaks the animal out, and I'm sure it would freak you out if you saw it happening. So it causes snags, bacterial buildup. It's also not enriching at all, and I think that's a point, you know, more advanced keepers try to make, is you should always be trying to give your reptile the best enclosure possible, and enrichment is a huge part of that. And so Repticarpet is extremely non-enriching. There's no way to burrow into it. There's no texture. Good or bad, it really depends on the use of it and what you're looking for in a substrate. I consider it more on the cons, more of the bad side, because there are better options. Personally, me, I go loose substrate all the time, so I'm a little bit biased, but even with solid flooring, when I did do solid flooring, I preferred tile over Repticarpet. That's just an idea to give you guys. But anyway, I have a whole video, go watch that. Our fourth question is, how do reptiles give birth? So there's two main ways reptiles can give birth. They will either be egg layers or live bearers is the terms we use. And so egg laying reptiles will of course lay an egg. My suggestion to you is, if you just want to know how reptiles give birth, think of a specific reptile and just look up that reptile, how that one gives birth, because there's the two categories and there's no really way to tell which reptiles are going to do which overall. It's better to just look up individual species. So just some common animals to give you guys a little head start. Common egg-laying reptiles include the leopard gecko, red-eared slider turtles, bearded dragons, and corn snakes. Common live birth reptiles are the blue-tongued skink, garter snakes, boa snakes, and Jackson's chameleons. And our fifth and final question was, are reptiles cold-blooded? So this one, let's not ask this question. It's very common, and same thing with me. In elementary school, you learn the term cold-blooded and warm-blooded, and it's because teachers and educators are really trying to simplify this term so little kids could understand it. But the better, more true term is ectothermic instead of cold-blooded. And I think if we just are honest with kids earlier on, even if it's a complicated word, if we just start with the right thing, there will be less misinterpretation as adults. There will be less myths around how reptiles are heated and such like that. Are reptiles ectothermic? And the answer for that is yes. Reptiles are ectothermic. And that word, if you break it down, ecto means outside and therm means heat, which translates then to basically reptiles have to get their body temperature regulated using outside sources. They have to be heated from the outside, which is why basking bulbs are so important. And even in reptiles that prefer colder climates, they still regulate their body temperature from outside sources. So basking bulbs, heat mat, heat tape, the mercury vapor, like all of that, critically important in heating your reptile. And all reptiles have a different range of what heat they prefer. Research your individual reptile. Again, this is all very individual, but as a blanket statement, yes, reptiles are ectothermic, which is why heating is so important and is such a big deal in the hobby. UVB, although does not contribute to heat, is also critically important if we're going to talk about lighting. But anyway, that is the last of the 5 questions. I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. If you like videos like this, please let me know. I could make more common question videos about pets. I do post videos every Friday, so if you like stuff like this and you want to come back, make sure you subscribe so you don't forget when I do post a new video. And I will see you guys next week, next Friday.